Hi, welcome to In Good Company with Constantia. I'm thrilled if you're joining us for episode 2 after you've had a good listen to episode 1, which was In Good Company with Constantia and Appetito, which was an exciting one to record. Today is all about everything marketing. And joining me today is Harry Evans, Chief Executive of Care Launch. In this episode, you're going to hear lots about how providers market their care businesses, how we look at return on investment for marketing departments, what real strategy looks like in terms of getting the message out there, getting the story out there, the purpose out there for us as providers of care in the care sector. You're going to hear lots about transparent marketing and strategies and our amazing How Much campaign, which I'm hoping by the time this goes live, you've all had a glimpse of that and it really resonates with you. So welcome and thank you. So Harry, thank you so much for joining us. You are in Good Company, episode 2, which is really exciting for us. For our listeners out there, just tell us a little bit about Care Launch.
Yeah, sure. So Care Launch is about 18 months old now, and it was the first full service marketing provider, I'd say. We tried not to use the word agency deliberately, so because I think there's some connotations that come with being an agency. Mm-hmm. So we tried to focus on being a marketing provider for the care sector. And we have tried really hard to try and find that balance between, I'd say, story and purpose. Yeah. Because I think there's a balance there, which is, it is an incredibly emotive industry, the care sector, and you need that storytelling aspect of it. But I think it's also easy to then forget that the job of someone like Care Launch is to then help increase occupancy. So you do need that performance element that runs underneath. So we've tried and we've learned, and where we are now, but it's been an 18-month journey to try and strike that balance. I think at times we've over-indexed on one side or the other. We've been too performance focused, or we've been too story focused. And I do feel like in probably the turn of this year, we've found the right balance now.
What did you think then when you heard about our job title, Head of Story and Purpose? Did that resonate with you then when you heard that? Yeah,
I think especially one of the big things that we have really tried to push since coming into the industry is like how fast storytelling can get you. Yeah. And I think it is lost. And I think especially, so a bit of context. So my background prior to doing care was probably what you'd associate with more traditional marketing. So we did a lot of work with software companies and things like that. And when we came across to care, I think one of the things that we found was marketing had been put in a box of putting some posts on Facebook or maybe putting a blog up. There was no real purpose to it as such. And I think we tried to come in and say, if the only thing you focus on is telling the stories of the people within your homes, whether that be the residents or the people providing the care, you'll be amazed at how far that gets you. And it is so purpose driven to that point as well. So I think, I wasn't aware until George had mentioned it about the job title changes, and I do think it makes so much sense.
It does, and I think for me, it's exactly right. As an organisation, as providers across the sector, we've got to make sure that the why we do what we do and how we do what we do is equally disseminated through the messages, and then the story of our journey and the capturing of it is everything. And one would hope that lands with different people looking to access care.
So I think there's two parts to it, which is from the work that we've done, I'd say we have yet to go into a provider's home and not speak to people who understand that. Like I do believe that care teams, activities coordinators, and then maybe more senior managers as well, they do understand the purpose behind what they're doing. I think where it has been broken down over, generations really, is that I think that has been lost to the people looking for care. Like care is very much, even now, if you ask, like when we've done audience research before, when we speak to people, the primary emotion that always comes up is guilt. It's never seen as like a real positive step forward into that next stage. So I think that message is clear for the people who are in there every day. Yeah. But it is lost for the people who then need to rely on their services.
That were the exact reason why we brought in MediaHawk. So MediaHawk is it's a telephone solution, so it can overlay our VoIP system and pick up certain keywords within conversations and then flag that to people that would want to listen to that call or do something about it. And when I spoke to the team, it were very much that message. It were to say that usually when we get a call into our services, it's maybe 6 o'clock, 6:30 in the evening, and we were missing those people, because by the time the office is closed down for the day and the care partners in the homes are supporting people to, enjoy their dinner and then start their evening routines, the last thing they want to be doing really is keep going to the phone all the time, albeit and still a necessary part of their role. And I mentioned to the teams that when someone is ringing you at that time, it's usually because there's been a straw that's broke the camel's back. Usually it's been, I don't know, the grandson that is on the way home from work. They ring the partner and say, I'm just going to go and take Nan's dinner round to her and see how she is. And then at that point, Nan's really unwell, and they've had a heated discussion, because that's what happens in families when frustration kicks in. And at that point, it's almost, I can't do this anymore, and I need to reach out to someone. I need to just offload. And I always believe that initial call that happens then is not just about how much is it, what do you do, how do I get into it. I don't think it's those questions. I think usually it's about them offloading their emotions, and it is that guilt. It's that guilt that comes straight through. And it's about, we need to be there for those people at that point to say, this is normal. This is fine that you feel that way, and this is how we can help you then access services for people. So that guilt is definitely a fundamental thing.
See, you're going to get me started now. So
good. We want to get started.
So, start of this year, we formally announced that we'd launched inquiry management.
Okay.
So, and we actually partnered with MediaHawk to deliver some of these services. So
right. Okay.
the guys there very well, but there's a few points I want to call out. So the first thing is, and George is behind the camera, is going to get sick of me telling this story, but one of the things that's been a lovely accident, so to speak, of launching the inquiry management service is that we've been able to move some of our marketing team onto Friday mornings. They'll take a couple of the calls. So they'll start to hear the people who are phoning in, looking for care for different providers and things like that. And I did one, and I spoke to a lady called Julie, and I asked her, why now? Why is it that you've called in? And that, her initial response was just pure emotion. She just started to cry and had to relay it out. And it was, like you said, there was just a breaking point of, I can't do this anymore, but I really don't want to do this, was the message that she was relaying. Which is, I have to, but I really don't want to. And I think, again, Julie didn't want information on pricing. She just wanted someone to hear her, have a real conversation, and tell her what the next steps are, and tell her that it's really not that scary, and that all of the power is still very much in that family's hands. Come and have a look at the home, have a look around, speak to the team. And it may be that you don't you just don't click with those people. And maybe you want to look at a different provider, but the fact that we could be there and answer that, and, ultimately Julie did move into the provider's home, which was, Julie's mum did, which was lovely. But I think the second part of this, which is something that I'm really, really nervous about, is that I think there's going to be a push for these calls to be taken over by AI. And whilst I think that, we're huge utilisers of AI, I'm incredibly worried that human part of these conversations is going to get lost, because it'll do a great job at telling you how much it's going to be, or what the funding caps are and when you need to seek funding, etc. But they're never going to be able to just hear someone and say, I get it. We know how you're feeling, and relay that back to them. And we're quite reluctant to utilise that as a solution. I think it has its time and place, but I do think we've focused really hard on just trying to get people to understand the mindsets that the people are in.
I've got two questions off the back of that. One is, if you don't mind, how did you feel taking that call from Julie? How did that feel?
In the moment, it's obviously heartbreaking, to hear that. I think afterwards, it just renewed the sense of drive that I had behind the service. And I think it's something that we've spoken about a lot internally, is that, and this is where it comes back to that kind of the balance of story, performance and purpose, is that our job really is to help real people find a care provider for their loved one. And I think I actually just came away from that with a renewed sense of we're doing this for the right reason. We need to really just utilise what we can do more and figure out how we can help people better. And I think, without talking too much about us, because I really don't want to get onto that, but I do think that's where any care provider can really harness this, is that unlike a lot of industries, you maybe don't have direct contact with the consumer all the time. If you're, I don't know, a camera company, for example, a lot of it is very transactional, whereas these relationships aren't transactional. And if you can use those conversations, those initial inquiry conversations, you should be able to better do the top end of your marketing because you know the pain points, you know the concerns, and you can use that to influence the stuff that's coming before they even inquire. And I think it is about just building real connection, and you can just use the same language that people are using.
Harry, did you feel like you were passionate about the organisation that you were selling? Because it's sales, ultimately it is sales.
Yeah, it is.
So did you feel, and the reason I'm asking you this is probably, there's a reason I'm asking you. Someone reached out to me to try to sell exactly that. A group of people that were really passionate about the sector, really felt that they could be that person that answered the call and really get across the message of our organisation to that person who were reaching out in that moment to then potentially and hopefully ensure that there's a journey into Constantia Healthcare Group services. And I were really reluctant to continue the conversation, and my immediate default, and I'm really happy for you to change that opinion, my immediate default was, and I said this to Georgia at the time and to Catherine, one of our other colleagues, was I don't feel anybody can get the message of Constantia over better than those that are living and breathing it every single day. And I were worried that it would tarnish the experience of people reaching in thinking it were Constantia.
I would agree to a degree.
Okay.
So I think it's the classic thing of no one's going to be able to better sell you than you. It's the thing that we've spoken about a lot as to like where the future of our growth comes. Do we need to hire like business development people, for example? And like, well, ultimately, no one's going to be more passionate about selling us than us. So I do agree with that trail of thought. I think where the middle ground is, and this is something that we've pushed really hard on, is I don't think you can sell anything that you don't truly understand. So I think one of the things that we've tried really hard on is that the people who are going to be taking the calls for a care provider have to go and visit each of the homes that they're representing. They have to speak to the home managers, they have to speak to the residents, they have to speak to the activities people. Because then, of course, we're never going to understand to the degree that someone who is in it every day is, but they will understand who they are representing far better, and they will understand like anecdotal information. So a great example is, so we have Natalie who takes the calls and represents, and we're open to say this, so she takes probably about 95% of the calls for a care home group called Ashbury Healthcare.
Okay.
And upon visiting those homes, she's now able to relay just like little bits back, like, oh, I was there and I was able to see like the gardens, for example, and there's a lovely area in the corner that...
You can make links.
And you can make links, and of course they're only little tidbits of information, but it's still enough to then pass that over for when the visit is booked in to say to the home manager, I've spoken about X, Y, Z, they really want to see this part of the home now, so please make sure when you're doing that show around to show them. So I think there's a balance that can be done, but not, again, without really focusing on the human side, which is you can't take an AI or whatever it be to a home, but we can take a person there to really get a feel.
Definitely. What I think my worry was more that how would we measure that passion? I appreciate that you can listen back into calls and things like that, but I think my worry was more that, you mentioned about you can't sell something that you don't believe in.
Yeah.
My worry was they wouldn't be able to sell it because they can't capture the essence of who we are as an organisation. How would providers in a similar space where they are now wanting to maybe tap into different resources like what you've just mentioned, how do you think they'd overcome that initial turn off of the process?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think there's quite a lot of rabbit holes you could go down there as to like measuring passion is obviously incredibly difficult. Like, even within your own organisation, how would you measure one individual to the other? I think what we have been really, really keen on pushing is like try for yourself. Like these are the homes that we're representing. Call, have a conversation, see what they understand.
Bit of a secret shopping experience.
Yeah, but like not to like try and get information in a malicious way. It's to genuinely just see, is this a conversation that I believe in? Because if you believe in it, and the person on the other end of the phone believes in it, then you're in a great place for both parties.
Definitely. Coming back onto your AI point, I think you're definitely right. I worry that the industry is going that way into, it's not just the world, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's going AI. And I think for our organisation, we very much would never be taking the angle of enabling an AI front person to sort of field the people coming through in terms of, because we get lots of people coming through for jobs. We get, as you know, it's difficult sometimes, isn't it, to control that flow of a CRM system that captures everything. Yeah. sometimes they capture job applicants, sometimes they capture care seekers. But we would never want AI to take over. When I recently did the Lambusson panel, I mentioned specifically then about you cannot replace humans. You can't, particularly in our sector. It's really, really important. And unless I'm proven otherwise, there's no AI on earth that would ever really, truly be able to really empathise with a human being on the phone when they're at that place that Julie was, in terms of, I've had enough. I feel awful admitting that I've had enough. I needed to make this call to you, but I really did not want to make this call to you. I need mum to go into care. But that will be a failure for me if that happens. And I think that's the raw emotion of the cycle. And I hope one day that people seeking care don't ever get to point 6 where they see it as a failure. Because I say, in my personal life, in my family, we have a little bit of a family joke, and I'll share it with you. Usually, I've got 2 brothers, and we talk about when mum and dad get older. And they look at me thinking, I'll be the one that will be the caregiver and provider and the looker after and everything else because I'm a woman, but because of the industry I work in. And I were really clear and really serious, and I sat my parents down with my brothers and I said, you do know that if the time comes where you're not able to look after yourself, either jointly or individually, we'll be looking at a care home for you. And they were really shocked, Harry. They were very much, what? Why? Why are you not going to do it? And the reason that I gave them is the reason I give lots of people is when you become the carer of your mother, your father, that real close person to you, sadly, as their needs continue to increase, it becomes a task, transactional orientated relationship. And I see the best turnarounds of relationships when people finally decide to place their loved one into care, as long as it's a good environment, because their relationship then can be back to being mother and daughter, or father and daughter, or son. And I think that is the place that we need to get everybody to understand that it's not a failure. It's you still wanting to retain that relationship with your parent, your loved one, and it's fine. But you've got to find the right place that feels like it's a fit for you and your family.
So I think that's where the storytelling aspect of what we do comes in. So the reason that I was smiling towards the end of that story is that yesterday I was at home when we were filming some videos, and one of the people we spoke to, his mother has dementia, and I think she's been in the care of this home for maybe about 6 months now. But he said, my relationship with my mum has blossomed since this happened, because before, like, my entire life was just dedicated to caring for her, making sure she was okay. I leave the house and all I'm thinking about is she going to be okay? Like, what if she has a fall? What's going to happen? And now he knows that she's in a safe environment, and now the time that he is spending with her is focused on being with her and not caring for her.
Exactly.
If that makes sense. And I agree. I think most people will have the perception that it is a failure. So hearing more people like Simon's story saying, actually, this is not just improved mum's life, but it's improved my life as well, and improved our relationship. That's where, again, the telling of the story becomes powerful, but really, really important. Yeah,
I totally agree. Going back to, you mentioned that you feel when you go into a care home that the teams there understand the whys of what we're doing and occupancy and getting people involved. How do you think that, maybe the question's not a how, is do you feel like providers really think about that in terms of marketing? So from a marketing perspective, do providers always train that team in terms of that first impression? Because first impression counts, doesn't it? What have you seen in terms of pieces of work that providers have done or innovation that really elevates that frontline team to give that really good first impression?
Yeah, so I think there's a few things on that, and one of the things I'm really conscious of is that, like, essentially we are like lay people to the industry. Like, we work in the care industry, but we're not delivering care every day. So when we do conversations like this, sometimes I'm like, I don't want to come across as like preaching to an industry about how to do good marketing, if that makes sense. So, like, I'm saying what I'm saying with a lot of empathy. But what we found when we first came into the industry was that in a lot of cases, marketing hadn't been associated with occupancy.
Yep.
It had maybe been associated, like I said, it'd been kind of boxed into, we're going to do some LinkedIn posts, maybe we'll put some leaflets out if we need to, or a banner when there's an open day on. It wasn't really connected to, we do this work, we will see an increase in inquiries, therefore we'll see an increase in occupancy. And the first thing that we worked with in that first year of Care Launch, we worked quite closely with the providers we were working with on, is really helping the senior team tell the story to the marketers as to, this is what you're trying to achieve. And I think once you understand that, then you become empowered to make more, I'd say, logical decisions on how we go, well, what can we actually do that's going to speak to people, that's going to mean that it will then encourage them to make an inquiry, and then obviously go through the process. So I actually think the first part to your question of like empowering people is by telling them what their role is and making that really clear. Where that bottles down into good examples is, I think it's where people really then harness that and take it forward. So we've seen some really good examples where providers have just gone into the homes to find the stories. So the marketing team, normally they're quite centralized, they're not really within the individual homes. So they will then spend maybe a week, 2 weeks just going around each of the homes and looking for where the stories are. And then feeling like, well, how can we elevate that even further? So examples we always come back to are, normally within your home you will find someone who is incredibly passionate about a local football team. Yep. And then you can go and go, okay, we have Mark, he was a massive Notts County fan. So we worked with the home and Notts County to take him and his son to a game to watch together, and we told the story of taking them and how much Notts County meant to him. And then that got all sorts of coverage on the BBC and local news and things like that. And that's not really much of a step. There's no elevation, like there's no increased budgets that are needed, there's no increased tools that are needed. So it's not like you have to empower people like through budgets or financially. It's just giving them the scope to tell a story.
Do you think that obviously within the sector, would you say that, would it be fair to draw an assumption that the providers who are building the big land yachts, as I call them, these beautiful services that can provide fantastic environments for people to live in and to be cared for in, do you think it would be a fair conclusion to say that the providers that are new and are birthing these services really invest a lot in marketing? They very much will centralise that marketing team in terms of outsourcing it, compared to those providers who are operating in older assets that have been built, some 20 years ago, and therefore this provider who is in the older asset is still heavily reliant on local authority funding. We all know, and it is, everyone's aware of, that the local authority fees are not meeting the cost of care, truly, what it looks like. Compared to this provider over here that, spent £10 million building this beautiful home, who are then really reliant on private customers. Would it be fair to say that this person's definitely really gripping marketing, really leading with it? And are these organisations, are these the ones that will tend to know they need marketing, but be really reluctant to bring it in-house because that extra cost, bearing in mind that they're already running a really tight ship? Would you say that's fair? And is that what your experience has been?
You'd be surprised. Okay. I think in honesty, like we've had quite a lot of conversations with, like to your point, those that are investing heavily in new build, purpose-built homes, where they've come to us maybe a week out from opening, like we're in trouble. Like we've invested this money, but we don't have a wait list. We don't have those people that we need to come in to really make this sustainable. Single
provider or a group?
Larger groups.
Right.
Yeah, okay. So that's happened, I'd say, not infrequently.
Right.
So I think I think what happens there is the true understanding of what you're marketing. I think it's very easy when you've invested an incredible amount of money to build something, you market that thing. So you start to market a building, essentially.
Yeah, you do, yeah.
But the building doesn't, the building is not what's going to fill that home. It's the people behind it, like who's going to be delivering the care, who's the home manager going to be, what can I expect when my loved one goes into that home? I think that gets missed quite often, and they spend a lot of resources.
Definitely. It's when you mentioned that then, strangely, my mind went to a restaurant. And it's the same thing. If you go into a bit of a fine dining restaurant, because you eat with your eyes, so the environment will sell itself, and the plates on the review, the website will sell itself. But if you've got no reviews behind you, you're really reluctant to make that reservation.
Yeah.
And it's the reviews that are the experience of the people that are receiving that service.
But I think like that, the example we always give there is that if you, like my sister, for example, she's mid-20s now. If she was going to look for a restaurant, she'd go on TikTok and have a look at like what real people are saying and what the real experience is like.
Yeah.
And that is where I think those larger homes that are purpose-built, that's where we need to get to, is like, what are those initial experiences of residents going to be? What do they look like? What do they feel like? To answer your question as to like those, like we'd say, like, to a point, like legacy providers, like you genuinely do have a legacy, and normally it's a family legacy. Maybe it's been passed down from one generation
that's what we have,
to another. Is that there are two things that we see quite often. I think the first is that maybe just in general, no one's made the connection of marketing to occupancy, and therefore what happens is marketing gets seen as a cost center rather than something you should be investing in. And then the second part is that maybe some people have invested, but they've gone from, say, like £0 invested to minimal spend.
Sure.
And the problem is that if you're invested minimally, you're going to get minimal results.
The impact's not.
But then when you come in and say, you've got kind of two options. You either build an in-house team or you work with a provider like CareLaunch, but the step up in investment is so significant, that in itself is a blocker. So where we work a lot on is educating, first of all, that like your marketing has to lead to occupancy, otherwise there's no point doing this. And then the second part of, like, this is truly what good investment in marketing looks like. Then from there we can start to establish ways of working and building campaigns that are going to take effect. But yeah, I think it is just more to your degree of like, up until recently, and we kind of came into the market for us very fortuitously, is that it was about the time where it was becoming very clear that just relying on local authority wasn't going to be enough to make, and ultimately, and again, like, these homes, they are businesses. And sometimes it can feel, definitely what we've had is it can feel quite dirty talking about them as businesses. But even if you work on a degree of we just want to break even, it can be difficult just trying to do that through local authority. So there's now been a step up in trying to get private, so people know that they have to market, but it just seems incredibly scary because 20, 30 years you haven't had to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. How do you think that providers can really measure that return on investment? Because I think that's what it's about, isn't it? I think if you as Harry and the team of CareLaunch are sitting in front of a legacy provider who do know they need marketing, but are really reluctant to put that onto the budget properly, so it's got some impact, they would be unsure how to really measure that return on investment. What have you seen in terms of or tips you've given other providers really on measuring that?
So this is probably my favourite topic to talk about, and it's because what we do is so incredibly trackable. So quite often the first part of the process is putting in an infrastructure to be able to show the return on investment. So quite often we'll come in, we'll have the conversation about, so where are you tracking the inquiries? Where are they going? How do you know they're being processed? And then we'll see some iteration of a spreadsheet. And the first part is that let's upgrade that system. And we normally start walking before we run. So obviously when we start talking about things like a CRM system, everyone's going to default to something like CareHQ or Found. But there are some free versions of more traditional marketing CRMs that we can use where we say, like, we will track every form submission that comes through. Forget about phone calls for now, because that's going to be a bit more complex. We can just track the form submissions that come through, and we can tell you what they said on that form submission and where it's come from. And then from there, you can start to build, over the course of a couple of months, quite a strong business case, either for marketing or maybe you don't need marketing. But just putting that piece of software on first to understand what's happening, where my inquiry is coming from, and just giving people some data to realize that you're not just making this decision on goodwill. There are some real hard inputs. So the first thing we say to anybody is, like, get some tracking in place, and then we can scale.
Do you think that providers train the call handlers, let's call them, well enough? Do they think about doing it?
I don't. So I'd say over the course of the last 18 months, we've probably worked with 50-ish care providers. And I'd say there's no kind of like uniform way that inquiries are handled, in all honesty. And you typically end up with a mixture of some groups will outsource to a provider, some will handle it like a centralized, they'll have a centralized inquiry team, or it will be left to the individual homes to handle. Where
we have a bit of a hybrid.
Yeah, and I think where we find is that normally centralized, they can be quite well trained because the job is solely to take those calls, right?
Sure.
So even if the training wasn't really put in place, you kind of learn as you go over a couple of months and know what works and what doesn't work. I think where it potentially falls down is that we have worked with very few providers that train the teams on the ground on actually two parts. Like one, how to take that initial inquiry, but also two, how to deliver a really positive show round. And I think that is definitely where there is ground to be made up. And also understanding, and I think you said this earlier, is that of course there are a million other things that someone has to do during the day, especially as it gets towards the evening, and you need to, like say, should have a nice dining experience followed by a positive nighttime routine. Yeah. But even just having some conversations and helping people understand, like, do X, Y, Z, or even follow this short process can make a world of difference. But like I said, 50 plus, I'd say it's bottom end of 10% that we've seen that happen.
We've done quite a huge piece on that, and we continue to. I mentioned to you earlier, we've got an excellence summit on tomorrow, on Thursday, where it's a development conference, and it's one of 3. And that's about bringing all our leaders together, but not just the leaders, the people that they work with, to build relationships fundamentally, but also we're going to be going through about 12 modules per conference. And there is modules on tomorrow's conference that is particularly on that. Sales may feel like a dirty word in the care industry, but it's not. And the main 2 relationships in a business, in terms of our business, is occupancy and payroll. And going back to your point about the leaders managing their services like businesses, so we restructured in December, and that fundamentally has been the message. It's a micro business, you need to run it in that way, and you are the business leader in terms of our home operations manager, and you need to be constantly thinking about occupancy and payroll, and they both have a very, very intimate relationship with each other. And we need our finger on the pulse. And it's not about being looking at services to say, okay, let's make money and let's do this, We are a legacy provider. We have fantastic relationships with the local authorities and the integrated care boards that we work with. We don't charge top-ups in the majority of our services. So we are very much, providing a really good, excellent service to the people that are in our care and the family members, but not with the lens of, okay, how can we make money on this and what can that look like? That's not the space that we operate in. So we're not trying to articulate that message to our team, but what we're saying to them is, in order for you to have a sustainable service, not just sustainable financially, but aesthetically, what we can provide, and those bolt-ons of care. As an organisation, we employ our own therapy team. So not only do the people we care for get access to the care team that they would need to meet their needs, we bridge that gap in terms of the NHS. So if a person needed an occupational therapist, we've got one. If they need a physiotherapist, we've got one. If they needed psychology input, we've got one. So if they start to, their needs start to increase and the level of acuity increases, which we know that that's happening, throughout the sector, that acuity is increasing all the time. We've got a team there that is above and beyond the standard provision of what one would expect, to be in provision of care. And we, as an operator, are very much thinking, okay, well, what else? What else? What else? So we've brought in the Familio. So Familio is, it was birthed in France. It's a French application. Obviously, they don't print it in French, but, it's a French application. And that's purely about, and I was sold within the first 10 minutes of Familio, because that's about a resident being in a care home, going back to your point about the initial call. So they feel guilty. They place the person in care, and then they come to see them every day. And then they start to feel comfortable. And then every day starts to become twice a week. And then they're still comfortable. And then the twice a week goes to every fortnight, and then once a month. And then before you know it, life takes over. And that's not a bad thing. It just means that life has progressed, and that's what it does. But we're really keen that that person who's always been used to this constant relationship still very much feels a part of their family, not just the immediate one, but the wider one. And that's what the Familiar app can do. But it comes at a cost. And you can't build that cost. It's got to come from the organisation to want to add all these bolt-ons on top of what we're doing. So that's very much been about, the modules that we're going to be looking at tomorrow is about that training, the understanding of sustainability, and not just sustainability, what real success looks like in terms of as a conscientious provider who wants to provide outstanding services to people and families. So that's what we're about. So we're very much into that training.
And I think that's a big thing that we speak about as well, is that those individual units of businesses, they have to be healthy because that's what goes into providing good care. So your point, I completely agree that, like say, occupancy and payroll have such an intimate relationship, but it's also, like you say, that you have to have a healthy team of care providers and givers for the care home itself to be great, for them to provide great care to the residents, and all of it does work in harmony. And I think what we see is that sometimes it's just incredibly fragmented. So I love the fact that you're bringing that all together.
We certainly are. For us, just to scrape right back to the beginning, we first discovered Care Launch through Georgia. So we do obviously have our head of story and purpose, and she's amazing in terms of capturing the essence of who we are as an organisation and really pushing that out there. She uses the term small and mighty, and I love that, and that's who we are as an organisation. But we're building, we're building on something, and I also use the hashtag creating our own trails and not, and not following other people's paths and doing that thing. But for us, we got in touch because we were in an ELF meeting, not to be mistaken with Christmas. It is the Executive Leadership Forum meeting, ELF. And what we do is the heads of department get together, and I run it, and we just go through the organisation on a month-by-month basis, and we just really, really get to the granular details that as a board, at the board meeting, which is stop number 10 after the ELF is 9, we wouldn't get into that granular detail. We need to be making decisions that are impactful for the organisation. So we get really into the grit. And it was in that meeting that I shared an experience that I'd had. I'd been asked to be a speaker at a local authorities forum, and I agreed, and I went along. And as we were talking, and it had wrapped up, we were asking sort of question and answers, and another provider said to me quite directly, well, you're really expensive as a provider, so maybe that's why you're not getting the people knocking on the door. It were a particular service that's had quite a significant extension on it, because you're too expensive. And I thought, really? Are we expensive? And in that moment, I said, and we've got 60, 80 people in the room, a really, really good turnout. And I said, well, this is what we charge per week. And I heard that's cheap. I heard all the sounds, the sound effects sort of trickling around. And I thought, we're not expensive. We provide a good service for a good price for people. In fact, we provide above and beyond. And then it got me thinking about the care sector and the sometimes lack of transparency in it. And I mentioned to Georgia, I really want a transparent marketing strategy. So we had a brain dump, as she calls it, and we went through different things. And then we came upon the How Much campaign. How Much campaign. And I pulled Georgia back in after she got the illustrations done, and we knew, we'd got some meat on the bones. And I said, right, Georgia, this has now got to land. I believe that this is the campaign. I don't feel like I've seen anything like it in the sector to date, but we're small and mighty, and what we can't have is these big organisations cannibalising our adverts behind us, almost like Pac-Man, because then it won't land. What can you do? And that's when she reached out to Care Launch, and we first then started that dialogue for you to support us with that. Thinking about our How Much campaign, what were your first impressions on that when Georgia then reached out to you and your team?
The first thing is it sounds so much better in Georgia's accent.
Do you want to do it, Georgia, for the camera?
I think we had the immediate conversation we had off the back of it, though, was like, it isn't something that we've even heard a concept of before. Like, you are right that actually the conversation we typically have is even about, do we want to display pricing, let alone be transparent about it. It is, do we want it on our website? Where do we want to put it? Do we want to be open? Do we not want to, like, what do we want to do? Do we just want to get some in and then have the conversation? That is typically where we end up quite a lot. So the fact that we were having a conversation of how do we actually, not one, just be like transparent about it, but then promote it and shout about it and get that message out there, is something that we hadn't been a part of before, which I think is why we were so excited to get involved in the project. And I think where we are now in terms of that project itself is the message is clear, and obviously the objective of where we want to get people to is clear. It's now for the care seekers themselves, what is the message that we're going to go out with to resonate with people? And George and I have a brain dump on this afternoon to really talk about that, because again, that's where literally where we started, we kind of come full circle, where story is so important. It's all well and good having the performance and the purpose and the performance behind it of, we want to be transparent, we want that transparency to hopefully lead to more inquiries, therefore more occupancy. But what is the story we need to tell throughout these adverts and throughout the process to keep people engaged and to keep people hooked?
What are your thoughts on it though, Harry? Have you, you said you've not seen anything like it. Did you think, ooh, that's risky? Or did you think, this is really exciting and this is what it needs?
I didn't feel risk, for sure. I think it was more, I'll be honest, the initial process we had was, that's very different, that's exciting, but how do you talk about price without making it sound salesy?
Yeah.
Because I think that is ultimately what you have when you think about someone going out there to the market with a price, with how pricing works. The typical connotation you get off the back of that is these people are pushing for sales, right? So, because quite often we work with providers, again, that will maybe offer a discount if the 12 months fee are paid up front, for example.
Right.
But if you go out with that message of get 5% off care fees, well, care then becomes associated with sales, and that doesn't resonate. So that was my first thing of like, this is exciting, but this is a challenge. How do we tell that message to not just put those two things together in terms of care and cost? Let's try and find a kind of balance. And I think what you've said so far today is really going to help us with that message as to the reason that we want to talk about this is because, yes, the price is important, but it's important that people receive good care for a good price.
Definitely.
And I think that is something that is going to really resonate. I think that's where we will probably land in terms of the message that we're telling, which is you're going to be looking, as part of your care journey, you're going to be looking at different providers, because that's what's going to happen ultimately, is that it is very unlikely that someone's just going to make an inquiry at your home. They've probably made an inquiry at a couple of different homes, because that's natural. But maybe not everyone's going to be as transparent as to how the process works and what care we provide and how we provide it for the fee that we provide it for.
Exactly.
And that's what I really want to get across.
Well, that's the essence of
the 10 to 15 second advert.
Yeah,
so
that is the
challenge.
And I'm glad you're doing it and not me, because George always tells me, because I like to write, so the 15 seconds would be 15 minutes by the time I'm done with it. That is the essence of it. The transparency within the cost, but the transparency in the process, managing expectations in the process as well, and how we do provide what we provide for the charge that we have. And I think also reality is really important, and this marketing campaign is about sales. That's what it's for. And I think, when I've been talking to people about it, I was talking to my barber, and I said to him, if you needed to find care, what would be some of the first questions that you would ask? And the first thing he said were, how much is it?
Yeah.
And I think for me, we need to lean into the younger generation. And I believe that will be some of their first questions. How much is it?
So we actually have some data on that. So obviously now we've launched inquiry management, we get data on what questions are coming in, what are the first questions, etc., etc. So about 3/4 of people, when they make the inquiry, the first or second question they ask is about fees. And there are two things they ask. How much is one of the questions. And then the second one is, we will ask the question of like, do you think care is going to be privately funded or is going to be helped or topped up by a local authority? And most people haven't considered that or know how that process works either. But you're right that, so at least 75% of the questions that get asked one of the first two will be about costs.
Yeah, I mean, I ask random people even on trains now, just to sort of measure where they're at. So that, I'm not surprised that that's the question.
Yeah.
Also, the bit I do like about our campaign is the round tables that dovetail it. And that is exactly right, what you've just said. So the first two questions about how much is it and how do I get into it is exactly what this campaign will execute. Because one will be, how much it is before you even pick the phone up.
Yeah.
What you also know is how much all the competitors in the area charge, which is the real bit that I'm excited about, because this is what we charge and this is what you get. And this is what everybody in a 5 mile radius charges as well. So they're going to get that.
Yeah.
So there is that transparency that's out there. And the round tables are all about that managing expectations bit. So it's about saying to someone, this is what it looks like. If you've got savings, assets, whatever, over 23,250, this is what that'll look like. When you start getting near to that, this is what this bit looks like. This is what a property disregard scheme is. This is what deferred payments is. This is how this happens. This is how a client contribution works. Kind of really doing a lot of myth busting as well with them. All with caveating it with I'm not a lawyer, accountant, or otherwise. Please sign this disclaimer. This is just what we know.
Of course.
But it's about educating people.
Yeah.
And I truly believe that people need to make informed decisions. And for us, that's what it's about. It's about the high level of transparency so you can make an informed decision. Are we the right fit for you with what we've told you and what we offer? Yeah,
there's something I'll share with you afterwards. So we've done something similar. So I think where the difference is that obviously this campaign's about transparency, but there's another, you'll probably like it because it was written. There's a content hub we created for another care provider, which was like a care funding guide.
Yeah.
And it answers in written form all of the questions that people have. And it's funny how since we've created those content, how many people are coming in via live chat with follow-up questions to that content, because the thing is with care is that it's one of those things you only think about when you need care, and then all these questions come at once, and it can be quite scary. And the other thing that we find, and I do think this is something that could be a competitive advantage as well, is that people will ask about how the fees work, what the threshold is for local authority funding, and then are just kind of told, okay, back to you, off you go speak to the local authority, whatever it may be. It's very rare that someone will hold their hand through that process or even check back in and go, last time we spoke, you had a question about funding. Did you go and speak? How did the conversation go? Is there anything we can do to help? So I think transparency is really important, but then I think you also then being there to help people through that process.
Walk them through it, absolutely. Yeah. And we would hope that by the end of those conversations, it will be our homes that they're knocking on the door of. Fingers crossed that that's the case. But ultimately, if it's not, that's fine, because we, as an organisation, have played a really good part in enabling that person to access care. And, if you can add value, then add value, and that's what we will do, either, to our organisation or to that of others.
We say it's all about trust.
Yeah.
And I think trust will get you so far. And I think it's even a case of, like you said, that for whatever reason, sometimes it might just be not the right home for them. But if you've built up so much trust, I could almost guarantee that person at some point will result in helping you the other way, whether it be just a word of mouth referral of, what, when I was looking for care for my dad, these guys were incredibly helpful, just to have a conversation. And then that might be the way that you increase occupancy. But we think it's all about building trust. Yeah,
we've had some fantastic reviews, and one review that sticks out for me all the time is, sadly this person's father passed away. But she put online that her only regret was not finding our care home sooner and putting him in there sooner. That were her only regret. And that's what we want to replicate with people. We want them to experience what we truly believe is what care should look like. And that's what we want people to tap into. So I'm really excited about the campaign.
Yeah, me too. It's, like I said, we're going to be filming, hopefully, this afternoon, our first pieces of content for that, and we're really excited to see.
Yeah, you're going to Manor-Croft,
we
aren't you?
We're going to Manor-Croft this afternoon. So first part of the process is, post this podcast, we're going to have a bit of a planning session as to what that narrative is going to be.
Yeah.
And then I will hold my hands up. I play no part in the process that comes after that, which is
Yeah.
them filming that story, which is very much George's role today.
I think you can probably scratch whatever you plan, because the people that we care for at Manor Croft will dictate your script pretty quickly. Yeah. No, they have an ace time over there, and you'll have to watch out for. I mean, they're always having like random silent discos and all types of stuff. So it's a great. You'll feel it as soon as you walk in. You'll feel the buzz of Manor Croft, and particularly our home ops manager Karen Flynn is excellent. Her passion, her commitment to the people that are entrusted to us, the passion she's got for her team in how she leads them, and very much our cultural message around, okay, well, these are our values and this is our culture, but how does that translate? How does that land?
Yeah.
She oozes that. So I'll be really happy to get your thoughts and feedback after that.
Yeah. Except really, it's going to be, it is funny though, isn't it? Because like we always say that like as soon as you go into any environment, into homes especially, you get two types of people. They see the camera and they run away, or they see the camera and run towards it.
Karen will go, ooh, not sure about that. But then once you warm her up, she'll be absolutely loving life, because she's so passionate about Manor Croft. So, and like you going back to your comment earlier on, if you believe in something, you can sell something.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't just believe in it, she lives and breathes it.
Mm-hmm.
And she is to a total different level. So you'll get a really good session with her team, and the people that we care for there are really, really great. It's totally off topic, because we've been talking everything from obviously you launching Care Launch right the way through to occupancy and training and the dirty word of sales, right through to the How Much campaign. You are week 2 as the chief exec of Care Launch. So you birthed Care Launch, so you're one of the founders, but how does it feel different? Is it sat different with you, you know?
Yes, is the honest answer. I think there's in two ways. So the reason that we decided to make the changes that we made was to really allow people to sit in the right roles for them. So when we launched Care Launch, and up until 2 weeks ago, what ended up happening was that we have quite a strong and diverse senior team, but everybody was kind of picking up a bit of everything, which meant that everyone's like real strong suits were being diluted. Not deliberately, accidentally, but it meant that, you know, we'd be having conversations in board meetings and things like that saying, well, why haven't we gone deeper on that? Or why haven't we done this? And it'd be, well, because I had to pick up this thing or I had to pick up that thing. So we implemented the changes that we did to allow people to sit in the roles that are going to allow them to make the most impact, whether that be, you know, some people's roles are purely to help the growth of Care Launch, but some people's roles now are to purely help the growth of the providers that we're working with. We're only, like I said, week and a half, so this is week 2, so week and a half in. We're already feeling those changes. I genuinely feel like we've made more progress in some of these areas in the last 7 days than we did in the 18 months prior. So I think structurally we're definitely feeling the benefits. I think where my role has differentiated in the last week is that I am now a lot more focused on the story of what we're doing and the why of what we're doing. So it really fit nicely that one of the first.
Do you feel like it's changed your mindset then a little bit?
Yeah, I'd say so. So prior to the changes we made, I was very much focused on operations. And the way that I feel about operations is it's basically just putting out fires all day, every day. And you sit down and you think, okay, I'm going to do this. And then you end up doing something completely different because there's a fire over there, or whatever it may be. And really now I'm genuinely looking at just immersing myself in the care industry as much as possible. So every day up until I think the end of April, I have at least one meeting with a provider where we're not talking about marketing. We're just talking about what they do, what the challenges they have are.
Their reality.
And then their reality to try and understand more, because ultimately, like I said earlier, we are lay people to the sector. We're not in the sector. But if we can understand and empathise with the challenges that go on every single day, then we'll be able to better support them.
Yeah, love that. I think that I'm now month 7 as of we were talking earlier, as of the 1st of April. And I think it's probably right. It's almost a tangible feeling, isn't it? And it does shift your mindset. I think that, unfortunately, you know, for me, I started on the 1st of October, and you don't get to the end of September, and all of a sudden you wake up on the 1st of October and you're different, because you can't forget what is still going on. But I think it definitely changes your mindset. And I'm in the same space around, for me, it's about really championing championing our organisation, and getting the message across, the purpose across, the what we're doing, the why we're doing it, the story of making sure that all the colleagues really feel signed up to and how we go into it and how they're a part of it. But I'm still very much in operations at the same time. I'm too nosy. I straddle the two roles, so I've not quite got out of my chief operating officer role yet, but I'm committed to doing that.
I'll give you a hack there though. So we employed my sister to handle the operational side of the business now.
Oh, right. That's a good hack for you.
She's very good at telling me to go away.
I bet she is. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I think she likes it more now because she gets paid for it as before. Before she didn't. But that worked really well. Is just having someone to say, because I'm the same. I just want to go and sniff around and find the problems and get involved. Yeah. And she just looks at me and tells me to go away.
Go away, Harry. Yeah, I've got this. Yeah. We a bit more of a topic. We talked a little bit as well, didn't we? I said you've either got a really great skincare regime or you're a younger leader, as am I. How does that feel with you? How does that sit with you? You know, you said now you've got a meeting every day with different providers. Do you feel like sometimes you might be on the back foot, that's the wrong word, but more they might think, oh, hang on a minute, what's he got to bring to the table? You know, they kind of their expectation and maybe their experience of a chief executive is someone that is a little bit later in their journey. Have you had any?
Yeah, so I'd say there's actually two parts to this, which are I'm a younger leader, but also we work in the marketing industry, so quite often I'll get tarnished with two brushes of we're just the people with the cameras. Is one. Right, okay. So like how much value we really offering sometimes, and then combined with that of the almost like you haven't been through the pain that I have. Like you're younger,
you've not had the sleepless nights.
You need to go through the pain, and I think what that has materialized in, and I probably wasn't able to put my finger on it for a long time until this is a little tangent, I'll come back to it. But so George is our creative director, one of the co-founders of the business. I met George because I was looking for a dog sitter and I Googled dog sitters in Northampton, and at the time George was doing dog sitting, and he came to my house and we've been talking, and he came back a few times to look after the dog, and he was working with a guy called Leo Harrison. He runs a large recruitment company called Chapter 2. Okay. And he has a phrase called positive paranoia. Okay. And I think I didn't know that's what I had, but I think very much that's what I had.
I've never heard of that.
Yeah, so it's not, you're not necessarily living in the world of anxiety, but you're always conscious in the back of your mind, like, what's going to drop? What do I need to know? What am I looking at? And I think, so for the last 5 years, whilst I've been in more senior positions, that's definitely what I feel like I've had, which is prior to any new meeting, there's a lot of background work that goes on so that I feel like I can, to a degree, prove myself in those initial interactions. Yes. And I think if I didn't have that positive paranoia to do that, I would feel more on the back foot. But I think that you can quite quickly just kind of get to meeting expectations with just that kind of like that background work first.
It's funny, isn't it? Because it's positive paranoia. It's younger leaders that, you know, there is that bias that's out there, and people's perception of what one shouldn't look like or be like, or what age they are. But it's strange because just yesterday I was chatting to a colleague in the sector, and we were talking about leaders, you know, my concept of what our home operations managers do, and that's about leading their business as a micro business. And I said to this person, because we've got some colleagues that, you know, really taken to that like a duck to water, and we've got other colleagues that are still making that transition and still growing with the role. And I believe the reason is the care sector is a passion. It's usually, you know, you get pulled into it, you get drawn into it. There's a reason that you're there, and then you become then up into leaders. So our home ops managers and lots of other registered managers that, you know, at the same point in their career have always just looked at the care. Is the care really good? Is the feel of it really good? That's all they've looked at. They've never looked at the business side of it. And I really, really believe that not only are all ours, you know, going to reach that stage of elevation and feel totally able to run that business, and they're very much nearly there now, and I believe that these excellence summits will really get them there. But the leaders in the next 10 years who will be younger registered people, I believe, will be the ones whereby they do start making a significant difference in terms of running businesses, because their exposure earlier in their career has been totally different, because the sector's changing. It's all about now, how can we be sustainable financially? How can we really do this? Because we know there's no more money coming. The local authority not suddenly going to ping you an email to say, by the way, paid you £900 this week or £850. It's going to be £1,200 next. It's not going to happen. So we're all having to be responsive to that. And I do believe there'll be a shift.
Yeah,
in what
I'll make a final point, just because I was going to see Georgia getting quite...
They're all waving at us, by the way.
On the camera, is that I think exposure is just really important.
Definitely.
So I started in marketing when I was 16, 17.
Yeah.
And I worked for a very small company, and I got a lot of exposure to how business operations happen. And I think that's what's guided me throughout the next 15 or so years. So one of the things that we push for with the more junior people in our organisation is just giving people as much exposure as possible. And I think you're right, is that as the care sector's changed to become a bit more business focused,
It has, yeah.
the younger leaders in those businesses that are getting more and more exposure, how they then run those organisations in 10, 15 years' time is going to be
totally different.
So different.
Yeah, definitely. Harry, thank you very, very much. I've really thoroughly enjoyed that. Yeah, thank you. Please also like and share our page and subscribe to the In Good Company with Constantia podcast. We'd be really grateful if you could do that. And also keep an eye out for our social media pages for lots more content and messages that we can share throughout the sector. Thank you.